I said, oh, fun, yes. And when I said, which of these possible ideas would most appeal, she said, oh, pick your passion. It's like, oh, lots of them. But I said, okay, I can do that. And she also said, we'd love to hear some compare and contrast. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to do that, perhaps I ought to learn a little bit more about Unity. So all I can say is, thank goodness for the FAQs on unity.org. It was big help. And she also said, tell us a little bit about your long, strange trip from being a cradle Catholic to being a Unitarian Universalist. And all of these just ended up being really interesting reflections. So I started out as a Catholic, went to, CCD classes, 1st through 8th grade, and was spared Catholic school, but then I did Catholic high school. And as I got older, I realized that stuff was not starting to work for me, and there were some seminal events. One was when I was actually fairly young, and I thought, we've got this sacrament called confirmation, and it's when we ask 8th graders, think of it, 8th graders, masses of walking hormones with no rational thoughts in their heads, and we're asking them to confirm the baptismal choices their parents made for them. I thought, that doesn't make any sense. How can they make an informed decision? They're not at a point. It felt like the Catholic Church was going for quantity while they had them young and clueless rather than quality members. So that was not quite a good Catholic thought to have. I also realized that I had some problems with the whole idea about original sin and how missing Mass on a Sunday, if you intended to do it and you just didn't care about the consequences, that counted as a mortal sin, which was going to be really bad for you ultimately. And I realized I had problems with that because of some friends of mine. Jennifer and Dave were friends. I call them my 3 a.m. friends because literally they were available to me when my husband was in the hospital. He was dying of cancer, and he had this knife-happy physician who wanted to do surgery in the middle of the night. And this guy was a GP. He was theoretically licensed to practice surgery. But it's like, I don't trust you worth anything. And he was really trying to pressure me. No. And I called Jennifer and Dave, and it was 3 a.m, and they schlepped over 20 miles to the hospital to be with me. 3 a.m. friends. And because they would take trips up to the Boundary Waters in Minnesota over the weekend sometimes and not go to Mass, their immortal souls were in danger of being very uncomfortable for eternity because they were missing Mass. And I thought, no, they're living the way I'm told people should live. They're being Christ-like, but they're not getting their card punched on Sunday, and so that negates all their good works. That was an issue for me. And finally, I realized that when I was repeating the Nicene Creed, which is what we believe as Catholics, I felt completely inauthentic and out of integrity. None of these were good signs about me being comfortable with Catholicism. So I went through a period of time being a little unchurched because, Ken did die from the cancer eventually. And my 2 brothers-in-law, who are now ex-brothers-in-law, were still around. And it was the classic, well, this is not fair, this doesn't make sense. And so I backed away for a while, probably a couple of years. And then I realized I wasn't happy being out of community, so I went back. And the fit was not good, but the people in the church were fabulous. So I went back for a while. And then I started really listening to my big sister who has been a Unitarian Universalist for many, many, many moons. She stopped being Catholic basically the day she graduated high school and moved away to college because it had never worked for her. And I started listening to her, and then I started checking out some UU churches, and I thought, oh, this works nicely. And I'm just very grateful that People's Church Unitarian Universalist is such a good fit for me because it's the only game directly in town, so I'm fortunate. Would it be disrespectful if I sat this down here for a minute? Okay. Sometimes my standards are not other people's standards. Okay. So that's where I ended up. And it's a nice fit for me. And I realized that one of the reasons it was going to be fun to come talk here was because neither of our churches are, beat you over the head churches. We don't finger point. And I realized as I was on the FAQ page on your website that I do see some significant differences between Unity and Unitarian Universalism. Not as many as I would have been okay finding, I guess. The first one, the most significant, is that Unity has a belief system. You've got your 5 principles printed out, but it is a belief system, and you have teachings about your beliefs. Unitarian Universalists, many of you know this because I think that was part of your long, strange trip, was through a UU church before you came to Unity. We don't do teachings, we do explorations. So what we encourage people to do is play with ideas and see what fits for them and see what doesn't. And take in the former, let go of the latter. And we also, rather than have teachings, we have covenants. Most churches will have, or most congregations will have, a covenant of right relations in which we agree solemnly to be this way in relationship to each other. And instead of the 10 Commandments or the 5 truths, we have the 7 principles. And that is how we covenant to be in the world and be with each other. I probably should have known, or could have known early on, that I would end up being a UU when my sister, the one who converted many years ago, said, you know how Unitarian Universalists are harassed by the Ku Klux Klan? And I said, no. She said, burning question mark. Okay, it's probably my church. Another difference I found is that for Unity, it is a Christian framework using the Bible as its basic textbook. I like that phrase on the website. For UUs, the Christian tradition is one faith tradition that we draw on. We also draw on Islam. We draw on Judaism. Our pagans obviously draw on nature worship. So kind of anything is fair game for UUs if it helps them be better people in the world, which is kind of cool. And then the third difference I found is that Unity teaches truth, a capital T truth, whereas Unitarian Universalists, because apparently we have real issues with people telling us things, we encourage everybody. It's our 4th principle. We covenant to support each other in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. So we don't typically do capital T truth. We do truth as each of us individually sees it. Fortunately, the truths that we as individuals come up with, are, again, helping us be good global citizens, helping us make the world a little bit more positive place rather than, a cesspool. So those are the differences I found. But I found a lot more similarities between Unity and Unitarian Universalism. We seem to be pretty good, both of us, at walking our walk. It's not just, And I had a very interesting experience on the way coming up. I live in Southeast, and you know how there are many, many people who will be at standing at the top of exit ramps, and they've got their cardboard signs. I am never sure which people are genuinely needing help and which are saying, there's a lot of suckers in this town. And so the story I make up is that nobody would put themselves through this if they were not in rough shape. And so I usually stop, and I usually give something. And what I noticed today was that the car in front of me had a decal on it, the car that had stopped at the light right next to this person, indicating he needed help, and the decal said, "The living Eucharist, living the word of Christ." And I thought, I'm seeing a little disconnect here, just a tiny one. And it's hard to say, and one of my big things, anybody done the Myers-Briggs type indicator ever? Yeah, my J is off the scale. That means I like to know the answer. I don't want multiple choice. And sometimes that leads me to say, okay, this is not okay, good, bad, right, wrong. So I struggle, I don't struggle so much anymore, but I'm very aware of my tendency to dichotomous thinking, black and white. And yet, in this case, I found it really hard not to say, wow, that seems incongruent. You're talking about being, honoring Christ. And you're not even pretending to help this person who may need it. That was a little curious to me. Generally, UUs and Unity people both think that folks are generally terrific, inherently good, worthy of respect, simply by virtue of being human. We're mostly comfortable with metaphysics. Humanist Unitarian Universalists may talk about the unified field, whereas the rest of us talk about the universe. But basically, metaphysics is pretty okay with us. We reach out beyond our immediate spiritual communities. We not only accept diversity, we welcome it, and we take people where they are. I think, Barb, you just used that phrase. It was written in here before I heard it, but yeah, where you are is where we like to have you join us. So, about twice as many similarities as differences. So I thought, that's interesting. And I do have a trusty cheat sheet, which is a side-by-side Unity's five components of the belief system, and then the UU's principles. So if anybody is curious, 18-point font. It's easy to read. Let me know. So whether you are... So whether we're UUs or Unity... What? Thank you. There had to be a word, and I might have actually been somewhat that too. I was going to say discreet and not come up with that, but thank you for the Unitix. Lovely. We are, both of us, I would say, big into conscious choices, and those choices that we make every day demand a lot of courage and a lot of awareness. Sometimes the choices are easy and obvious, and sometimes they only appear obvious to others, but we can't see them. A case in point is one of my favorite poems. It's called Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters by Portia Nelson. Here it is. Chapter 1. I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. Chapter 2. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place. It still isn't my fault, and it still takes a long time to get out. Chapter 3. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it is there. I fall in again. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5. I walk down another street. Portia obviously has been watching me, because I cannot tell you how many paths I've worn, how many grooves I've worn in the same streets before saying, oh, I can choose to go down another street. If we choose to take that other street. The results can really be fabulous, but it takes a lot of work to, have the V8 moment where you go, oh, wow, I don't have to be doing this. What we get to do is consciously respond to what's going on in our lives rather than react like an amoeba. You put an electrode up against an amoeba, they run away, they ooze away. We can choose not to do that. We don't have to be a slave to habitual knee-jerk reactions. And it takes awareness. So try something with me, if you would. Think about your left pinky finger. Can you tell it's there? See what it's doing? Was it doing anything different before you tuned into it? It was, mine was still supporting the mic. This one was just kind of hanging out. And if we are not aware of what's going on in our lives, there's nothing we can do. Awareness is key, and it's not particularly fun all the time. One of the big awarenesses that we all have is that things are perhaps a little more rocky now than they were, say, a year ago. Not that I'm talking about anything political or any particular people whose initials are DT, but if I were, is it coincidence that DT is medical shorthand for delirium tremens? Just curious. So we're in an odd spot. Some Americans are jubilant. Oh, yeah, that's our man. And a lot of us, I'm guessing, a lot of us here, trying not to make assumptions, are kind of appalled and like, really? What is going on? Well, we're faced with an incredible number of choices that we get to be making. If we choose to believe that we have no choice, we're going to end up paralyzed. We will be paralyzed if we choose to believe that we're helpless and that we're powerless. There are lots of organizations who are working to make a difference. There's moveon.org, which is all about political action, but not for a particular candidate. There's change.org, which is a platform for people putting up petitions to redress what they perceive as wrongs. There's the Resist movement nationwide. So if you check out #resist, you'll see a group here in Cedar Rapids, groups in Iowa City, pretty much all over the nation. So we are definitely thinking that there are things we can do. And so I would like to share 3 quick ideas on choices each of us can make that will enable us to feel more like we've got some power to make changes in this world. One approach is to make the choice to focus on what's already working. When you're bombarded with stuff that's not going on, when you hear about one idiocy after another and, building the wall in Mexico and ties to Russia and it's easy to focus only on that instead of to say, but there is stuff right going on. It's when something's in your face, it's so easy, something icky, it's so easy to focus only on that. And so the challenge is to actively look for what's going well. Unity is going well. People's Church UU is going well. We're little beacons and we support each other. So that's something to look for. It can be tricky not to filter out evidence that things are going well when you're faced with a whole bunch of bad stuff, and it is doable. You can take noticing what's going well and take it a step further and turn it into a habit of gratitude. Who does gratitude journals? I cannot tell you how many times I've tried to do those, and it has never worked. I finally found something that does work, and I call it green gratitude. I got this idea from a woman named Pam Grout. When I'm out and about, if I see a green vehicle, I use that color to remind me to think of something I'm grateful for. It could be a physical ability, it could be friends, it could be an activity. Despite the heat, it's been the sun. That I can do. Somehow it's more active, I don't know. But that's my gratitude practice. And for me, it's something I can do, whereas a journal, I could never make that work. Don't know what that's about. That, when I see something like that, and of course, I have these days, especially when I'm grumpy, and that's when the universe says, oh, Kathleen, honey, you need help, obviously. And bam, 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 one green car after another. It's like, okay, I'm thinking. And when I say, oh, look, I've got 2 good legs. I don't need any adjustments on my car. I've got a car that's paid off. I've got a car that is closing in my 300,000 mile, which I wanted, Toyota. And she's beat up, but she's mine and she's wonderful. She's paid off, it's fabulous. And that shifts my energy. And it gets me out of the snarky thing, and it just gives me a boost. And we can never afford to ignore what's going on with our energy. And I brought a friend along to demonstrate this. Now, normally, I find dolls a little on the creepy side. I made an exception for Neva. And I'll tell you why. Neva has these little hearts on her hands, and she's got a battery inside her. When the battery circuit is completed, this is what she does. Okay, so you're going to want to hit her after a while. But the point is, the circuit is completed. The energy has a place to flow. I complete the circuit with her. Now, because I don't want you, even though they're not vinyl, I don't want you sticking to your chairs. I'm going to have us all do an experiment. Can we make a circle? Can we all circle around so that we can hold hands? This will be worth it, I swear. Okay, would you hold her? Okay. Oh, fabulous. We're going to have a twisty circle, and I need everybody to be holding hand. I swear this will be worth it. Great. Okay, so are we all connected? Beautiful. Okay, so nothing's happening because I'm not holding her. Ring around. Ashes. We all stand up. Yeah. I like that better. Nina, drop one of your hands. Pick it up again. Oops, and I've lost my. Oh. Okay. Okay. And I know what I want to do. She's off because I'm not touching. Hold your hand out. This is why I wanted the mic, because I'm not handling this very well. Yeah, there you go. Thank you for doing that. Creepy, but effective. Ooh, I like it. I'm not that good at that. Sure. Oh, that'd be great. So, our energy does amazing things, and we can apply that energy to a second choice to feel better, feel more powerful. And that is to focus on what you can control. Because how many times have we gotten snarky at somebody who's doing something over which we have no control? Have we all gotten sucked into it? How's that working for any of us? No, it's so not. So we get to say, okay, he who shall not be named is in the White House. Can't do anything more than I already did about that. What can I do now? So I can get involved with Move On, yes. Am I involved with Change.org? Yes. Am I involved with Resist Movement? Not so much yet. Am I not getting into debates with trolls and haters online? Yes, I'm avoiding them. So there's the good news. We can always control our reactions. Viktor Frankl wrote a whole book on it, Man's Search for Meaning. The only thing we can control in life truly is our response to our situations. And boy, I read this great quote, and I don't know whose it is. I may have to just shut up because I'm going to fumble it. I don't remember it enough. Give me a moment. Hopefully it'll pop back into my head. For me, it does not work to say everything happens for a reason. For me, that's way too much predestination. To me, that's taking my power away. And so I can choose not to believe that. Other people say that's such a comfort to me, which is great because there are all different things that work for different people. What I find does work for me is if I'm in the middle of a really tough situation, what I'll say is, boy, this is really hard. This is really kind of crappy. What can I do about it? Is there anything good I can get out of it? And looking back, because I was very young when I was widowed, and it's going to be 25 years in November since my husband died. And I can look back and say, I would not be as together today as I am, probably, had I not had to go through that. A lot of cancer survivors say it was a good thing, which to me is like, how can you say that? And yet I lost Ken to cancer, and I can say something good came of it. And when you look at you take that yes and approach, yes, this is hard, and this is what I got out of it. It keeps you away from that dichotomous thinking, and it also puts you back in your power to make choices. So when you focus on what's working and you focus only on what you can control, not what you can't, you combine those two, and that leads to a third practice, which is using what if to take back some power and take back some calm and confidence. What if is one of my favorite questions. I use this with my business clients. I use this with me. What if this somehow turns out to be a good thing? So like for the political situation, what if it turns out it's not as bad as we think? That one's worth a huge eye roll, in my opinion, but what if? What if it's not as bad as we think? What if we look back 10 years from now and we realize this was the nadir? This was as low as we will ever be, and that was what we needed to rebound us. You know, who knows whether that's true? And it's possible. We make up stories about reality all the time. And if we're going to make up... Oh, really? And if we're going to make up stories, we have the choice to make them be horror stories or to make them be epics in which we are the hero. So if they're stories anyway, why not make up the heroic epics? one of the things, as I was reflecting on where or how I got where I am, I realized that something that a program I took for work actually ended up being a really helpful part of my spiritual growth. How many people get something in their email boxes called Notes from the Universe? Anybody get notes? A few people. They're written by a man named Mike Dooley. He's a recovering Catholic also. And when he started asking all these kind of existential questions, he ended up coming up with a view of life and source and spirituality that he ended up calling infinite possibilities. And it's all about how you make conscious choices and how you allow yourself to experience the infinite, the boundless goodness that is available to us just because we're here in this earthly plane right now. So I found that, and I took this 4-day course with him, so I became certified to teach infinite possibilities, and I realized it really fits in with my spirituality very nicely, because he also contends that we're fabulous. We are just flippin' great creatures here, and that we are powerful and we are beloved. And we can do marvelous things for ourselves and for others as long as we kind of take our own brakes off and allow our divinity to come through. And he talks about it as a 7-part process, this accessing your inner source. And it makes so much sense. I incorporate this into business, and I incorporate it into personal life, and surprise, I incorporate it into church services because I think it makes so much sense. The first part is kind of the basic, it's the foundation of his whole view. Thoughts become things, which, all right, flipping. It sounds a little bit like we create our life experiences through our way of thinking. Some similarity there. And that's belief number 3, I think. So thoughts become things. The second part is looking at the beliefs we have, which again are at this point habitual. We don't question them. Most of our beliefs are mental pinky fingers. They're just there. We don't pay attention to them unless we make a special effort to. The third piece of his framework is thinking about the emotions that are engendered by those beliefs. Sometimes our beliefs serve us, sometimes they're self-sabotaging. The fourth part is taking action, which I think is great because this is, for me, a lot more powerful than The Secret, because The Secret kind of implies, okay, thinking and it'll come to me. And this framework of infinite possibilities says, picture and go work your butt off. You know, you have to take the first steps. One of the things that I particularly like is that in this step is that he encourages us to take the baby steps and to see those as valuable. One of the notes from the universe said this, somewhat paraphrased. You don't hoist the sails on a sailboat to move the boat. You hoist the sails to catch the wind. Similarly, you don't take baby steps for the amount of ground they cover. You take them to put yourself within reach of life's magic. Too many of us get caught up in saying, oh, well, that's such a little thing. It's just $1 that I gave to that person by the road. That's not going to make any difference. We can choose to believe that our baby steps make a huge difference. That puts us in a position of power and in a position of doing more good. Fifth part he talks about is dreams, desires, hunches, and intuitions, how those are both guideposts for what we can create, and they're also tools for creating, if we choose to use them. The sixth part is what he calls faith and the magical universe. And it's being willing to be faithful and say there's something out there bigger than me that absolutely has my back at all times. And then the seventh one, it's kind of a minor thing. It's the meaning of life. And it's for within this framework of infinite possibilities, it's kind of the essence of simplicity. It's the meaning of life is to live it, to be aware, to be present, to be in the moment. And all of that has just played in so nicely for me with my spiritual growth and my saying things that I was taught were just things, didn't have anything to do with spirit, actually have a lot to do with spirit. And so that's been a very, very nice fit for me. When it comes down to it, each of us has choices to make every single day, and the more aware and conscious we can be, the better those choices will serve us. And I think most of us would like to say they will serve the world too. Before we go out, though, saying we're going to change the world here because we can do it, I'm going to encourage all of us to keep in mind the words of Howard Thurman, who was an American theologian and philosopher. He said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what makes you come alive, and then go do that. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive." So I wish you a delightful journey as you come more and more alive. Thank you for having me here. Blessed be. Okay, am I launching into a meditation? A shorty? I can do short. I'm happy to do short.
Music, then meditation, and then otherwise all that. So if we can, we'll play one number.
Of course.
And then go into
Of course. I'm shutting this off.
And we're in Iowa City every Tuesday night from 7 till 10 in the Ped Mall, and we would love to have you come join us. It's much like what we've got here. We've got instruments. You can join in and be part of what you see here, and you might get hooked on it and want to keep coming.
Okay. Minor shift in plans here. I was going to do a little bit of a quieter meditation, but that's such a bad idea right now. So this is going to be actually a couple minutes of a sung meditation, a mantra meditation. This is one of my favorites. Shante prashante sarve baya upashamani swaha. It means I offer up the energy of fear to the universal good. We are at a time where there's a lot of fear, and we get to find a way to be strong in it. Sit back, go with the music. Shante prashante. Shante prashante sarve baya upashamani swaha. Shante prashante sarva baya upashamani swaha. Shante prashante sarve baya upashamani swaha. Shante prashante sarva baya upashamani swaha. Shante prashante sarve baya upashamani swaha. Shante prashante sarva 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 baya upashamani swaha. Namaste.